Hello and welcome to Kids Nutrition and Picky Eating. I'm your host, Dr. Furundi. Thank you for joining me today. So today we're going to dive in and answer the question, why is my kid picky? If you're a parent who has a picky eater and you've wondered why your kid is picky, you're not alone, and this answer is for you. Why am I going into this? Because once you understand why your kid is picky, you can make meal times less stressful. So let's break it down so we can all understand this. So I will break it down in two different ways. First, I'll start out with the child. Picky eating is a common phase of development, typically starting around 2 years old, could last up to 5 to 6 years old. And usually during that stage of life, that's when you start noticing the kids' assertiveness, their temperament and everything showing up, where they're trying to be independent. That's when you start hearing them say no to everything. They want things when they want and how they want it. You see the temper tantrums going on, where they're trying to figure out who they are, what their likes are and stuff. So typically that is temporal. Good news about that part is that it is temporal, and with certain things that you do, you can make it where that transitional phase, it goes through with ease. Now there are a few cases. If you have a kid who is exhibiting those behaviors that are persisting, passing through that normal developmental time frame I mentioned earlier, then you may want to start looking into see, is there a medical condition that may be causing your child's behavior? In that case, you want to talk to your healthcare provider. Or is there a sensory process going on, which I'll talk about in the next video, but you still would want to talk to your child's provider to figure out what treatment options are for that particular kid. But in this video, I'm talking mostly over trying to figure out how we can handle those kids who are going through that normal stage of development. Now, if your kid is going through that phase, there's certain things that you may want to do before they get to the 2-year-old stage to help reduce the stressfulness of the 2-year picky eating phase. What are the things we usually recommend? Usually when we start recommending, the APP recommends starting to introduce solids to kids anywhere from 4 months old to 6 months old. And developmentally, that's when you start seeing kids, they want to eat everything, they want to put everything in their mouths and stuff. So once you get to that phase where they have rapid growth, they want to eat everything, that's your window of opportunity where you want to introduce variety. I've seen some mistakes that parents will do where they'll introduce something and the kid loves it, and you want to give them only that thing, and you don't want to introduce or give them certain foods that they may make a face to or spit it out. If you start out that way, you're setting yourself up for a struggle down the line, because once they get to this picky eating phase, they don't want anything but what they like. So instead of going to where you're introducing only the foods that your baby or your infant likes, you want to introduce variety early on. That way, if you end up with even like 20 or 40 things that you've introduced by the time they're turning 2 and they get to the 2-year-old and they're now picking out their preferences, at least they're picking out their preferences from a wide variety of options that they've been introduced to, as opposed to now introducing new things after 2 years old. So remember, it is easier to introduce the variety and the new foods for them to become familiar with earlier in life rather than later after 2 years old, where they're getting to the point where they're already now checking out their own preferences. And then the second thing you can do with that is, as you're introducing variety, when I say variety, what do I mean? We're introducing not one food a week, or we're introducing at least 2 or 3 new foods a week, and we're coming back and reintroducing even the foods that they made a face with or they did not like, because research shows that it takes even up to 10 to 20 times for some kids to take to certain foods. Now, while you're introducing those foods, you want to have that transition in textures early on as well, where you're not having your kid taking only purees until they're 2 years old, and then at 2 years old you're trying to now start introducing solids. That makes it where now they're not familiar with the solids and it's harder for them to take to it. So you want to make sure you're transitioning from that purees to the lumpy stuff, to the soft stuff, and the other textures, where you're not only introducing variety of food, you're also introducing varieties of textures earlier, so again that they have that variety. But like I said, good thing is that this stage is temporary. Most kids will go past that phase. And if your kid is one who's exceeding, there may be other things like a medical condition, a sensory processing condition, or something else that is inhibiting them from taking their foods. Now, that being said, the second part of it is the family dynamics. And I touch a little bit about it with introducing foods now. Our babies, our kids are little sponges. They soak up every single thing we do, every single thing they see you, what you're talking to them about. So they, even me, where the toddlers are now understanding stuff, they're now seeing you, they're now learning from observation, where it could even be a food that you heard said no to, not to them directly, or even no to in a conversation. I know that happened to me where I was talking to someone else and my daughter was listening unbeknownst to me about me saying I didn't like a particular food. Needless to say, this girl did not eat that food for a very long time. Why? Because she told me that you don't like it and why you're making me eat it. So it could be conversations that you're having about food. So you have to be very mindful that they're listening to you even outside of the table. Another thing is using food labels and using food as bribe. Using food as bribe is a very subtle way that we use to label foods, especially when we say, if you eat your veggies, I will give you candy, or if you eat your veggies, you have an ice cream. We're already labeling this other food as a very bad, unsettling texture and stuff for a reward for another food that is a preferred option. So they're looking at it like punishment, for lack of a better word, because why am I going through this before I get that? So sometimes you have some kids who take to it, but then because of that reward, but then after a while that feels where it's just like they don't want to eat it. And you have that pressure during mealtime where pressuring or bribing, sometimes we're pressuring to take one bite, and all of that in the mealtime environment makes it where it's so overwhelming, where the kid is not able to experience the food or form that good relationship with foods. So what do we do, or how do we tackle this one then? Now we have to make sure that we have mindful with the way we're modeling the right ways, by mindful with how we talk about food, what we eat in front of them. We want to sit and show them how to eat, because eating, it takes practice, right? It takes practice. It's not just putting the food and chewing it. Just know that, think about it from infants to where they are. They've never really chewed anything. They were suck, swallow, breast milk. They were not smelling. They were not exploring the milk and stuff. So eating, it takes time for them to learn. And we are those models who are supposed to teach them how to eat. So it's like a whole process. So we want to make sure we're eating together, or at least eating in front of them, where we're showing them how to enjoy the foods. We're chewing in front of them. We're smelling. We're exploring the foods. And we have to be mindful about how we talk about foods in front of them, where we're using the right language and avoiding food labels. And then we want to make sure that there's no pressure at mealtime too, where we offer the choices, we offer the food choices we want them to eat, and we back off and let them make the choice of whether or not they want to eat it, knowing that if you have a good consistent routine where we have mealtime at a certain time, if you don't want to eat it, that's okay. 2 hours later, you may have snack time with another opportunity to offer nutrition to your kids. And 2 hours later, another mealtime. So you have multiple opportunities throughout the day that releases that anxiety and that pressure for that particular mealtime, where it's like every time there's a no, it's okay. There's another opportunity for you to offer the nutrition for your kid. I hope you found this helpful. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and look forward for the next video where I talk about sensory as one of those reasons why kids are picky. Until next time, I'm Dr. Lum. Thank you for watching.